Here we are with Tory Green, co-founder and CEO of IO.net. Tory, it's so great to have you here on the Defiant podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be on here. Longtime fan.
Thanks so much. So brief background on IO.net. It's a Solana-based decentralized network of GPUs. One of the most prominent projects within DePIN, the decentralized infrastructure category, which has been gaining steam in the past few months. So we haven't had, I think, any other DePIN founder or project on the podcast. So excited to have you on, kind of walk us through this new ecosystem, and obviously IO.net is. So if we can just, start from there, like brief overview of what IO.net is.
I've been interested in crypto for a while, particularly DePINs. I've been a VC for several years on the Web2 side, but as I said, I've always been looking into crypto. And so this is sort of my first jump in over the space. And the main reason I made it was because I think that IONet is unique in that it's solving a major hair on fire problem. And I'll sort of get into that and explain it. But basically, what we are is effectively, we're like an Airbnb of GPUs, right? And why is that important? Well, compute is becoming the world's most valuable resource. Especially with the rise of AI, compute requirements are exponentially increasing. They're doubling every 3.4 months. So this is really, really outpacing Moore's law. Unfortunately, the current cloud infrastructure isn't really set up to handle this. There's scalability problems. There's global shortages. There are onerous CapEx requirements, and this honestly makes purchasing compute a major problem for the majority of engineers. Compute is it's very expensive. A lot of these startups spend I think 70 to 80% of their COGS on high power compute. It can take a long time to access, and there's limited choice. And so this is really like this huge hair on fire problem. And IONet is a very sort of unique and novel way that uses the power of DePINs and crypto economics to solve this. And what we're doing at the basic level is we are effectively aggregating GPUs from all across the globe into a single platform. And this basically allows users to access nearly unlimited computing power at a fraction of the cost of the traditional cloud. And so we offer a source that has potentially theoretically unlimited computing power because you can sort of span the globe to get compute from any country. It offers a ton of choice and flexibility. You can get A100s, H100s. You can get all kind of customization, like with NVLink, you can get different bandwidth speeds. And most importantly, it can be significantly cheaper than the competitors. That, in a nutshell, is what IONet is. And like I said, I keep going back to this Airbnb Uber analogy because I think that that's what DePINs are in general. Right? We are effectively democratizing access to compute and therefore democratizing access to the most valuable asset in the world.
Super interesting. And before we dive deeper, I'd love also to get your own background and path into co-founding IONet. I know you mentioned you were a VC in the Web2 space, but what kind of led you to start this company? Where did the initial idea come from?
Sure. And so I touched on this a bit, but basically I've had sort of three different core components of my background. Started off very traditionally corporate. So I did the investment banking track, private equity, corporate strategy. And then I moved actually into a bit of a more entrepreneurial vein. I was a co-founder of a digital media company. And so learned a lot about management there, and then pretty fully moved into Web2 about, 15 years ago now, and became a VC for about 7 years. During that time, I started off more as an investing partner, but then I really migrated to more being an operating partner. So I did that because, quite frankly, I think I was better at it and I liked it more. And so I spent a lot of time in COO, CFO, CMO, CRO roles for our portcos, helping them with finance, strategy, ops, things like that. Now, during this time, I was actually COO and CFO of a machine learning fintech. And that's when I really started to learn about that space and sort of some of the different challenges facing that space. I even actually took a 400-hour machine learning boot camp where I'm not an engineer, but I actually learned how to code very poorly, I might add. But that sort of reinforced what's sort of going on in the space. At the same time, I have been, personally very into crypto since 2016, 17, and even AI crypto. I wrote an article about AI crypto in 2019. And so this is a space I've been following for a long time. And in particular, I've been following DePINs. Now, I never quite made the jump from Web 2 to Web 3 because one of the challenges that I saw with DePINs is that they were effectively solutions looking for problems. I think there's a lot of great ideas out there for DePINs, but some of the problems they were solving, like storage or wireless access, weren't major problems. And so I said, DePINs are obviously a great economic model. This idea of decentralizing compute, creating structural arbitrage, great idea. But what's the problem? And that's when I sort of started to think, wow, I know the value of DePINs from my study of crypto, and I know the value of AI from working as a CEO of an AI company. And so that's when I started to throw around this idea of a GPU an Airbnb for GPUs. Now, unfortunately, this was just an idea. I'm not a technical person. Even though I have some background, I'm not an engineer. And so I was kind of watching this space, looking at a lot of the players, looking at the Renders, the Filecoins, the Akashas, and I actually ran across IONET. And I reached out to Ahmad, and he told me a bit about what he was building, and I was just blown away. And the thing that I liked about IONET is he figured out a way to create decentralized clusters, which really no one else in the space could do. And I'm not sure how familiar you or the audience is with clustering, but it's effectively bringing lots of GPUs together to work as a single GPU, and it's really instrumental for machine learning. And so I thought, wow, this company, it really does sort of solve this problem of the shortage of GPUs. And so spoke with Ahmad a bit, and it was very clear that I offered something he needed as well, which was sort of more background on the sales, the marketing, the operational side. And we also really, really hit it off well. And so I joined him pretty early, a year ago. And we've just been building ever since. Haven't had a day off, and it's been a very, very crazy year.
Speaking of Ahmad, he recently left the company, so I just wanted to get clarity on why that happened. Sure.
He did a very selfless thing for IONET, and it's a very tough thing for a founder to do. As you all know, we had a lot of early traction, and then we had some FUD, and then he personally had some FUD for things that happened many, many years ago that were definitely uncategorically false. But he realized that this was casting sort of a negative halo over the project. And he was like, I truly care about IONET. I want to do what's best for IONET. And so he came to the team and he's like, I don't want to be a distraction. Should I leave? And we all sat down. We sat down with the investors. And, he realized that it was the best thing to do because he did not want the focus to be on him. He wanted the focus to be on the project. And so he decided to leave. I also think that, it probably made sense for the company overall. Ahmad is a fantastic entrepreneur. He's great at 0 to 1, but also, IONET is now entering a different stage. It's sort of 1 to 10. And so while the first stage of a company is always building a product, which he's great at, the second stage is building the company. And that's what I've spent my life doing. And so with the FUD coupled with the change in stage, it just made a lot of sense. And it was a pretty easy transition because I effectively had been running a lot of the day-to-day. He'd been providing the vision. I'd been doing the executing. I was the one that worked with finance to get the listing. I was the one that raised the money. I managed the marketing team, the revenue team. And although I didn't have as much exposure to the engineering team, we hired a very strong engineering team. Gaurav Sharma, who's our CTO, was an ex high-level engineer at Binance. And so, it's just it was sort of that time to make the transition. And like I said, he didn't want the focus to be on him. He wanted it to be on the company.
Ahmad left a couple of days before the token launch.
That's correct.
So, just like a very important moment to be going through just this, so much change in the company. So how have things developed since then? Especially, how has the protocol or platform changed since having the token?
That's a great question. Looking at the company, I don't think the company's changed much at all. Our vision remains the same. And, quite frankly, the vision is very audacious. It's to disrupt, it's basically to replace AWS as the leading provider in the multi-trillion-dollar cloud market. I know that's audacious. Maybe that doesn't happen for 10, 20 years, but, that's always been the goal, and that goal hasn't changed. I really don't think operationally there were that many changes with him leaving. Like I said, I had already been running the day-to-day on the business side. Gaurav had already been running the day-to-day on the tech side. So if anything, it was sort of business as usual. Obviously what we're doing now is as we sort of, and this is my background being, like a 4-time COO, we're just really sort of like maturing the company. We're putting a lot of operational processes in. We're setting goals. We're giving KPIs for each employee. And we're also looking to hire more and more team members. And so we're continuing to grow. As far as how the company has changed since the token launch, I don't think it has at all. One thing that obviously, like, the goal of IONET it has nothing to do with the token, right? There is a token, but the goal of IONET is to build the world's largest decentralized GPU network, and ultimately the world's largest GPU network. And so that's fully what we're focused on, and that's always what we've been focused on. And so it's really just, I would say the bigger change happens every couple of months as we respond to the market and we respond and we build the team. But the token launching in and of itself really hasn't changed.
Are you ready to revolutionize how you interact with live content? Introducing PlayFi, where AI meets blockchain to unlock real-time data from live streams, sports, and more. With PlayFi, creators and brands can monetize and engage like never before. Join the future of live content. Visit playfi.ai today and discover how you can power the next era of play. Okay, got it. And then on just diving deeper on the just like GPU side of things, the big trend recently with demand for GPUs from the growth of AI has been just like the overall scarcity of GPUs, and hence, the huge value increase of NVIDIA, and it's all derived on how few GPUs people can get their hands on. So how are you contributing to this? And also, if you can share some stats on how many GPUs are in your network currently. So I think I had, as of April, IONET has a GPU cluster of more than 40,000, as well as 5,600 CPU units and 69,000 worker nodes. So if that's kind of generally correct, I'd love also to just deep dive on what these things mean. Like, what's the difference between a worker node, a cluster? Like, I think most of my listeners won't be so familiar with all the GPU terminology. So would be great to learn more about this as well.
Sure. So we currently, and so these numbers are always changing. And actually, at any time, you can log on to IONET, and our Explorer will give you the exact numbers right now. And so I just logged on the Explorer as well. We currently have about 318,000 verified GPUs and 38,000 cluster-ready GPUs. And to sort of explain the difference is we actually have we have 3 ways we classify. Number 1 is unverified GPUs. There's 1 million of those. That's basically any device that comes on the network and says, hey, look at me, I'm a GPU. Now, we have learned that people will try to put fake GPUs on the network. They did it as part of a civil attack early on. And so what we do is we've created a proof of work program that basically goes in and verifies these GPUs. That is our verified GPU number of 318,000. So we know that 318,000 real GPUs have joined the network in the past 6 months to a year. Now, roughly 38,000 of those are currently active. And that number can change. It can go down to 30,000, it can go up to 50,000. And it's basically based on a lot of factors. It's responsive to demand, it's responsive to what's going on in the market. And so that number is always sort of changing. Something that pretty interesting to note as well, it's very important to note, is about a quarter of these GPUs are enterprise grade. So that's A100, H100, and this is very important because this is what's used for machine learning and deep learning.
So what does it take to be an active GPU? And that's the kind of 38,000 number, right?
Yeah, basically you just you connect to the network and you are available to run a job. And you earlier asked about the differences between worker nodes and clusters. Worker nodes are effectively just GPUs. Clusters are, as I was saying earlier, a cluster is taking lots of GPUs and getting them to work together as like a single instance, or effectively like a supercomputer. This is very, very important because every major AI project relies on clusters. So for instance, if you were to try to train GPT-3 on a single GPU, it would have taken 10 years. GPT-4, 5 when it comes out, like who knows, even more. And so like every major AI company is using clusters to train and also mostly inference their models. And that's not just the LLMs, that's not just like OpenAI, that's also Uber, Instacart, things like that. And that's really where IONET is unique, in that we have created this ability, and actually we're the first, and so far as we know, only company to be able to do this. We can create clusters from geographically different locations. And so we can effectively aggregate 50 GPUs from Singapore, 50 from Canada, and 50 from Brazil to form a global mega cluster of 150 GPUs.
What incentive is there for GPU owners to join the IONET network?
Well, great question. Number one is they actually make money doing it. We'll talk about tokens and block rewards in a second, but any GPU owner that joins can rent out their GPUs and get paid in cash for it. This is very important because when we were founding this company, one of the things we realized is that the GPU market overall is not very efficient. It's obviously an oligopoly controlled by AWS, GCP, Azure. There's a few smaller players that focus on GPUs like CoreWeave and Lambda, but there are still thousands of data centers in the US, and these data centers on average are running at 12 to 18% utilization. So there are a lot of even large data centers with powerful GPUs that effectively aren't being used. On top of that, there's also a lot of fallow crypto miners. Ever since Ethereum switched to proof of stake, obviously a lot of GPUs aren't being used there. So there's just a ton of unused GPUs out there, and this provides a way for them to effectively just go out and get hired, right? Because we have this sort of global platform. The second thing is the block rewards. Basically, the block rewards we have 300 million tokens that we will be emitting over the next 20 years. And when GPUs connect, they not only get paid for people using their GPUs, but they also receive a portion of these block rewards, which are paid to active GPUs on the network. So they're effectively like double dipping, and that's a big part of our competitive advantage.
Are you seeing effectively former Ethereum miners or other crypto miners rent GPUs in your network? So
yes, but also because we're a decentralized network, we don't always know who our suppliers are. Now, that's why we run these lot of checks, right? We run geographic checks to show compliance from that standpoint. And we also have to run a lot of these proof of work checks to show that they are, in fact, GPUs. And actually, we're very good. We can always tell if it's a GPU or not. One of the struggles we've been dealing with recently is something called a spoofing attack. So some people were able to figure out how to use consumer grade cards like 4090s and have them act as A100s, H100s. And so now we're actually coming up with ways to sort of stop that. But effectively, like we can't always we can't tell where our supply is coming from necessarily. Now that said, we are trying to bootstrap a network, so we do sort of like work with a lot of these data centers. So we have a pretty good idea of who a lot of our suppliers are, just because we picked up the phone and said, hey, can you add 1,000 A100s to our network? And they say, sure. We see 1,000 A100s go on, and we know that's them. But ultimately, we can't always tell where they're coming from. Or at least we can usually geographically tell, but we can't tell, oh, is this an Ethereum miner? Is this a data center? Unless we've handpicked it.
Okay, makes sense. And then just to get a sense of your scale, with roughly 88,000 active GPUs, how do you compare it to competitors? Like you mentioned, AWS is kind of that's who you're going after. But I don't know if there's like similar size competitors or even against AWS. Where does that 38,000 number rank?
I actually don't know. There's no clear stats on what AWS, Amazon, GCP, CoreWeave they have. I would imagine we have a long way to go. As far as our decentralized competitors, you can pretty easily, for the networks that show how many they have, you can pretty easily do some comparisons. And generally, we are orders of magnitude above them. So I would say that, in terms of the Web3 decentralized space, I'd say we're the leader here.
And do you think that's because you offer better rewards, or what exactly explains your early traction?
I think it was a lot of hard work from the team. A lot of it was like boots on the ground, biz dev type stuff. We have a very good biz dev team with presence across the globe. We have some people in APAC. We have people in the US. They've just literally been going out to, calling on these data centers. And actually a lot of it even, I make it seem like yes, we've called on a lot, but there will be people who show up and meet us at conferences and say, hey, I want to get my, I've got a data center with 300 A100s. I'm having trouble getting on Amazon and CoreWeave. Can you work with us? And so I think it's just a lot of like boots on the ground, going out, contacting them, and getting these onboarded.
Is it easy for just like an individual to join your network? Like say somebody's a gamer and has graphics cards that, like they have powerful computers or whatever. Does it make sense for somebody like that to join your network? Or is this mostly targeted at like large data centers?
So, anyone can join the network. It's actually quite easy. It's I would say it's easiest to access compute. Like, you could go on the site right now and, quickly spin up a cluster. And it was interesting. In a lot of the early investor calls, I would, spend the whole call explaining what we do. And then at the end of the call, I would just show them, I would just go do it. And they'd be like, oh, you should have started with that. So it's super, super easy to spin up a cluster. Becoming a worker is pretty easy too. It's basically just one line of code. You have to be slightly more technically inclined, but it's pretty easy. In terms of, the sort of the uses of GPUs, that's a great question. There's always going to be sort of a balance of supply and demand. Right now, for AI, the enterprise cards are the most in demand. So if you have an A100, H100, you're going to come on and you're going to have pretty high utilization. If you've got a really good consumer card, like a 4090, like you may get some utilization. But if you have lower consumer cards, you probably won't get as much utilization. And so what we're doing on our end is we're constantly adjusting the rewards to benefit where the demand is most. So if you have a low grade consumer card, you're not going to get as much out of it as you would for a sort of high grade enterprise AI card. Now that said, as the network grows, we're always expanding into different use cases. Right now we're doing AI, but who knows? Tomorrow it could be rendering, gaming, and so I think there will always be like needs for different inventory. And I think you saw this when you saw like the growth of Uber, Airbnb, right? Like Uber started out with only black cars, but then it went to sort of like Uber Comfort or whatever that is, Uber Pool. And so as we grow the demand side, the supply side will also grow as well. But yeah, so anyone can join the network, but the demand sort of in some cases is there, in other cases it will have to grow.
And then digging a bit deeper on the demand side, so who are your clients? Like who's using these GPUs, like the GPU network? Is it like, are you expecting like large AI companies like OpenAI using IONET power, or like smaller players, or is it like mostly crypto companies? Like who's using the network now?
Great question. So when I started building the demand side of IONET, like I said, I've been in Web 2 for many years, been a CRO several times. So, I have a very disciplined philosophy when it comes to go to market. I firmly believe in this idea of beachhead markets. And so our goal has always been start with a very tight definition of our customer and expand from there. There were a lot of different types of customer types that we could have chosen. Like, yes, we could have gone after LLMs, tech companies, so on and so forth. The customer, in our estimation, with the biggest hair on fire problems is seed to Series B, generative AI, or just general AI startups. These are the ones that are spending, I think it's like 70% of their VC funding goes to compute. Even like I had one, it was a seed stage AI startup that was spending $700,000 per month. So this is a seed stage company, on compute. And so, these guys, they're like, hey, we just need affordable compute that works. And so that's perfect for us, right? Because, we can give them that. And I think, the plan is we sort of start with that as our beachhead market, and we're making a lot of traction on that, and I'll sort of talk about that in a second. But once we make inroads there, we effectively expand up market, right? Because, once we have proof of concept, and especially we're working on getting, more secure GPUs on the network, so SOC 2 compliance, things like that. But once we have proof of concept, once we get more SOC 2 on, we can now expand into different customer segments, such as maybe we go to big tech companies. Maybe we go to enterprise AI divisions of large companies, like a JP Morgan or Procter and Gamble. I don't know. And then ultimately, I do think that there's, once our network is big enough and stable enough, there's absolutely no reason that we couldn't go to the LLMs themselves. Maybe that's GPT-6. We can only hope, but that's sort of the long-term goal. In terms of short-term demand, we've been making very good progress. We've served over 1 million hours of compute. I think we've done over $1 million in GMV right now. But the exciting thing is that there's kind of like, I wouldn't call it a long sales cycle, but I would call it a long usage cycle. When we approach a lot of these machine learning startups, their first reaction is kind of like, yeah, this is too good to be true, right? How are you going to offer me the same level of compute at 60, 70, 80% off what I'm getting? And so what a lot of them do is they come in and they do multi-month trial periods. So they'll test, maybe 15, 20 A100s and, very limited spend. We actually have a lot of those that are now sort of rolling out of their trial periods. And so, even though we've done 1 million in GMV to date, I expect to see a pretty substantial bump in the next few months as we expand deals with a lot of these customers. And so that will be a big part of our growth strategy, will be the expansion. At the same time, we're also obviously hiring more sales people to continue to grow the funnel.
Nice. And can you repeat that metric? It's 1 million what?
So it's 1 million GMV. Basically, like people have spent 1 million on the platform. With 1 million hours of compute. So if you go to, and this is, I think, good for everyone to see, if you go to our clusters tab, you can actually see the total network earnings to date has been 1.15 million. That's with 1 million compute hours served and 25,000 clusters created. And
so with these, trial runs ramping up, how much do you expect that revenue number to grow? I mean, do you have like a projection for end of year?
I mean, I have an internal goal for the team, but I would say orders of magnitude. Like it's going to go up significantly.
Well, congrats on that.
Well, thank you. The customers are very satisfied, and they're pretty quickly ramping up these expansion deals. And maybe you did ask earlier, how have things changed since the token launch? Obviously there's sort of limited focus, and I think one of our major I do think that it's not that we weren't focused on this before the launch. But the launch obviously is a time-consuming effort. It took a lot of people's time. But I think now that that's out of the way, that we are like pretty resolutely focusing on increasing GMV. That's kind of the North Star metric of the company. And so I think, where you focus, effort tends to come. And I think we've been we've been seeding this field for a long time. And now it's hopefully time to harvest.
Protocol 20 introduces Sorbonne, which is Stellar's cutting-edge smart contracts platform. This creates new surface area for innovation and provides new opportunities for developers to build protocols and products that create access to everyday financial services. So it means a gradual increase in transaction capacity and a chance to fine-tune applications. And it's the most transformative upgrade to the Stellar network to date. Woohoo!
Going back to the token, actually, can you go over exactly how it works? Like why do you even need it? I get like you're incentivizing GPUs in the network, but yeah, like if you can just provide more details on how those rewards work, like how much inflation does a token have? Are there airdrop points? I don't know, like an overview of the tokenomics would be super helpful.
Yeah. So, just to be clear, once again, like the token is part of the Internet of GPUs Foundation. It's not, IONET is a different entity like most crypto projects. That said, I can still sort of speak to how it works. Effectively, the token's a utility token, right? Its number one use is it can be used to pay for compute on the network, although fiat can also be used, but it is used to pay suppliers. And it is also used to pay out block rewards to suppliers. And so that's one use. Probably the more important use is to secure the network through staking. And as we've seen, the sort of fake and spoof GPUs are a major issue. We obviously, 6 months ago encountered the issue of fake GPUs. We've solved that, but now we have this issue of spoof GPUs. And so, I won't go into all the detail here, but it is in our literature. We're effectively using staking as an incentive mechanism for, workers will have to stake to put nodes on. And what we're going to do is we're going to release all the data. And if either us or the community, we're going to release the data to the community. If either us or the community finds out that these are spoof GPUs, they will be significantly slashed. And so the staking of the token is vital to ensure the security of the network. And so I would argue that that's probably the most important value add there. So there's two ways with staking. Now, both workers can stake to the network. They have to put GPU supply on there, and regular token holders will be able to stake as well. And then finally, there will be a governance element to the token. We are creating a grant style, or the IOG Foundation is creating a grant style. That hasn't. We're still working on that, but those are the three main uses of the token.
And so for individual token holders, non-worker token holders to stake, I'd imagine do they get like a reduced amount of rewards versus workers?
They get a share of the rewards, and all of the details are in our staking docs. Staking actually should be released in the next week or so.
It's not live yet?
No, it's going to be live in a couple of weeks, yeah. You also asked about long-term inflation. So all of this is sort of stated in our tokenomics, but basically we start with 500. And then we start with 500 million tokens, and then what we wanted to do was ultimately shift most of the tokens to the community. And so there will be an additional 300 million released. This starts, it's sort of like a disinflationary schedule, right? So it's actually very similar to Solana. It starts at 8% per year, and then each year goes down by, I think, about 15% until in about 20 years it effectively caps at 800 million. Now that said, we're always like talking to the community to see if there are we're committed to the 800 million, but we're talking to the community to see if this is the best schedule. Are there ways we could balance supply and demand better? And so that's something that we're always looking at with investors, community, because we want to make sure that it's very important to us to make sure that and to the foundation as well, that we maximize the block rewards for the suppliers and also the stakers. And so we want to continuously balance supply and demand.
That makes sense. So, there's been so much hype around AI crypto that it's become just like a buzzword.
Yeah.
Where there's not a lot of meaning behind it. It's like AI crypto, what is it? Like it could be so many things that it's really nothing. But since you are really in this intersection, you're using crypto and you're providing services for AI startups. Do you think there's actually, what are your thoughts on that AI crypto intersection? Like, should we be thinking about that sector in a different way? Maybe it's too broad to just add everything that's using both technologies in one, or I don't know, does it make sense because it's so early that there's just few projects working in that intersection? I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
So when I think about AI crypto, what I really think about is decentralized AI. And if you sort of step back and you understand how AI works, there are effectively three key stakeholders, right? To build a model, you need three things. You need data, right? And then you need data scientists or machine learning engineers to actually build the model. And then you need compute. If you look right now at where this industry is, we're in a very dangerous spot because big tech controls all of these, right? Like, look at Google. Google controls all your data. Google has a huge balance sheet. So, I mean, if you're a good machine learning engineer, where are you going to work? You're going to work for Google because they can pay you the most. And then they're the ones that have the money to buy these supercomputers, I think Facebook just built this massive computer. Now, the problem with this is, as we've seen, there is a ton of bias in these models, right? You've seen Musk comment on this, but, these it's the same problems with that we're all in crypto for in the first place, right? We want to reduce bias and we want to reduce censorship. And basically, if we allow big tech to keep control of these three things, it's just going to create a vicious cycle, right? Right now they're creating the AI, so that makes them more money. And so they're going to have more of your data from the AI. They're going to have more money to keep hiring the engineers. And then they're going to have more money to build the compute. And so it's going to get worse and worse, and they're going to have more and more control. Effectively, they're going to become the most powerful entities on Earth. Now, obviously, I don't know about you, but I don't want Google to be the most powerful entity on Earth. I simply don't trust them. And so one of the reasons I got into this is to break their monopoly. And the way you do that is by decentralizing everything. And the truth is, you can decentralize any leg of this triangle. IONET is obviously decentralizing the compute. But, there are a lot of people that are decentralizing data, which that's very important. And I'm sure there are people that are working on decentralized models as well. This is not a Web3 company, but if you look at Hugging Face, where just everyday consumers can come in and they can, put their own models up, you could decentralize that. And I think if these three work together, and that's why, at IONET, we've been so eager to partner with people, that's how we come together and we take down big cloud. Now, that said, I think the Web3 is doing this as a whole, but I think as IONET, as we grow, this is something we have in mind. And so, as I said, right now, we have a lot of operational discipline, and we do want to focus more on making sure that we decentralize the compute. But a potential next step for us could be to create a decentralized model layer, right? And we could build that on top of IONET, so people can come in and they can build models. And then maybe even on top of that, we add ability for someone to have an SDK where they can build their own like AID app. And actually, you've already seen this. We created a product called BC8.ai, which is really, I would argue, like the only fully decentralized AI app in that, you can see if you go on BC8.ai, like anytime you run an inference, you can see that like all the major stakeholders are paid on chain. And so it may be like, 1/1000th of a cent is paid to the app creator, 1/1000th is paid to the model creator, a little bit is paid to the compute providers. And also it's made on our network of fully decentralized GPUs. And so I do see a world where you could have that. And then I think IONET will continue to be building down that path as well.
CK Verify is revolutionizing how proofs are verified, making Web3 networks faster and more efficient. At its core is a modular system designed to decouple proof verification from execution and settlement layers, offloading the heavy lifting of proof verification to a separate network. CK Verify cuts down the associated cost by over 90%, offering huge savings and a more robust network performance for Web3 networks, and it is live on testnet. Visit their website today to learn more. That's super interesting. To you, AI crypto is how Web3 can use blockchain technology and crypto to decentralize this new wave of technology that's AI. That right now, it's it looks like we are going down a path where the Web2 giants that have controlled the internet so far will also control this next stage of the web with AI. So we maybe have an opportunity now to use crypto and decentralized networks to stop them or at least break up that monopoly and have a different, have an alternative to this.
100%. And those are the three areas that like we need to fix: data, we need to fix models, and we need to fix compute. Like when I think of crypto AI, that's what I think. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on, like, AI enabled L1s, L2s. I don't really pay much attention to that.
Agents, right?
Yeah.
Like trading agents.
I don't pay much attention to that. I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just not my area. I mean, like I said, I've been in AI for quite a while. And, so yeah, I think the problem is AI can seem like this very like amorphous thing. And you're right. It is a buzzword. Right? It's like, I saw a joke the other day. Remember that scene from Wolf of Wall Street where it says, "Sell me this pen," and basically the guy says, "Sell me this pen," and he says, "It's AI enabled." Right? So like you put AI on and you have a buzzword. But we in IONET, we've been doing AI since before it was cool. And when you really break it down to its component parts, to me, it's really those three things, and that's where the play is.
Yeah, I guess like the other use cases which make that intersection like hard to grasp because it's so many different things are maybe just more marginal to this core which you're talking about. It's like, okay, so a big sector is like AI agents, but they are using AI technology for something.
Yes.
Which, I think, can be a part of this sector. But I think you're right that it's what's kind of the bigger opportunity and the most kind of important move here is to actually, decentralize this stack first.
The infrastructure. Yeah. It's like you're decentralized. Like infrastructure always comes first, right? It's no use building, cars if you don't have roads.
And speaking of infrastructure, we mentioned, at the start of the call, AI. I keep getting messed up with like AI.io.
That's fine. We like that.
Yeah, maybe it's on purpose. But you're part of this DePIN category, and since you're plugged into what's happening there, curious to know your thoughts on some of the trends you're seeing, maybe different like other DePIN projects that you think are interesting.
I mean, obviously I'm going to use this to plug our partners. I'm very big on Render, Filecoin, Aether. I think. Yeah, it's so cliche, but I do believe in WAGMI. like people in crypto can get very tribal, which to me has always been unbelievably silly, right? Like it's almost like we forgot why we're in. We forgot why we're doing this, right? You have these, huge companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, who control all of our data. They basically they get in there and they interfere and they do things the way they want to do it. And they're this huge threat. And then some people in crypto are worried about oh, is this network better than this network? No, the truth is this market is a multi-trillion-dollar market. It's big enough for everyone. And so we need to work together. Obviously, I think DePINs are a phenomenal invention. I heard one quote somewhere that said this is what blockchains were invented for, right? Like decentralizing physical infrastructure networks. I think there will be a lot of you've got I've long liked Helium. I've long liked Filecoin for what they're doing. But even in compute, obviously, Filecoin is a great partner for us. Even though they primarily do storage, a lot of their data centers have GPUs as well, so they work well with us. Render has a lot of GPUs, so they've been a great partner. Aether has a lot of GPUs, so they've been a great partner. And so we're trying to work as much as possible with the other projects in the space so that we can all come together and basically achieve this long-term goal, which is truly disrupting the status quo and making sure that big tech does not control AI.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to wrap up. Very exciting vision. I think very last question is, speaking of bigger vision, what are the very next milestones that you're looking towards? And then, I think we touched on this, but if IONET is successful, what does that look like in, say, next 10 years?
Great question. I'm actually going to be releasing a State of the Union in a couple of days, hopefully maybe a week, that clearly outlines our vision for the future, our progress to date, and our goals. But I can just sort of give you a snapshot. Our vision, as we went over, I personally am a huge fan of decentralized compute. Obviously, I want IONET to be the leader, but I am convinced, to the core of my bones, that a decentralized network will take down AWS. It's just inevitable. They are better, faster, and cheaper, and they keep they keep getting better and better. Obviously, I want IONET to be that. But I think there's a lot of great companies out there doing this, and so it's going to be incumbent on us to continue to stay competitive and continue to grow. And so my goal for the rest of this year is really 5 things. Number one, it's we need to continue to upgrade the platform to make sure it's at an enterprise grade level. As I mentioned, we recently had the spoofing attack, and so there are several things that we are doing there. We're upgrading our proof of work system. We're implementing tiering verification. We're instituting a staking and slashing program. We're providing this community data release and rewards, where basically the community can go in and they can find problems. We're also bringing on third-party collaborators to basically verify and secure the network. Number 2, the second important goal for us is to continue to drive revenue, and that's by providing a great experience. As I mentioned, number 1, we want to expand our customer relationships. We've signed 56 deals to date. Many of these are moving past the trial stage, and 1 to significantly increase. So that's something we're going to take advantage of. 2, we're going to continue to build our long-term pipeline. 3, we're going to start looking into bundling compute with storage. We think that'll make our product a bit more sticky. We're also looking into channel partnerships. And of course, we're going to continue to increase our supply of enterprise-grade GPUs. Also, on that note, on the revenue side, to demonstrate a commitment to transparency, we're going to start collaborating with third parties to provide an unbiased verification of our GPU and GMV statistics. The third major thing we're going to do is we're going to really work on improving our community involvement and engagement. it's, I don't want to sound cliche, but like, because every decentralized project says, oh, community is very important. But, to us, we truly believe our community is effectively a source of competitive advantage. We can use their insights to drive innovation and maintain agility in this environment. And to do that, we have a couple different initiatives that we're taking. We want to start being more transparent with our roadmap. We want to provide longer lead time notice on changes so community can start to opine on that. We're bringing more of our senior leadership into our weekly AMAs. We're creating formal issue tracking and resolution systems, and we're initiating community rewards programs. And then the last two things are, we're always working with the IOG Foundation to optimize block rewards to all stakeholders. And finally, my goal for the rest of this year is to just continue to build a world-class team. I think we have a great team, but like if we're going to take on AWS, we just need to grow. And I think honestly, one of the best ways to do that is to find the degens inside of these companies, right? Because like I guarantee you, there's people who work at AWS, CoreWeave, Lambda that they see these problems and they want a better way. Like find them, find the people with the know-how, poach them. I mean, that's how you win.
Amazing. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think it's just like a very ambitious and very inspiring goal and vision that you have. So far you've had incredible traction building in just a short amount of time. So hopefully you can get there.
Thank you so much for having me on. And anytime you want to chat, we'll keep providing updates.